call it a comedy of errors, the Biden administration's pitiful handling of the withdrawal from Afghanistan. But why did the president and vice president think this is also funny? For a full week now, the world has watched in horror as Afghanistan falls to the Taliban. Fear and panic have swept the globe. Thousands of Americans are trapped there. Al-Qaeda and ISIS are starting to move in. Our allies are furious. And yet, when a reporter confronted the president about this and his plummeting poll numbers, this is how he responded.
A new poll out today shows Americans wanted to withdraw from Afghanistan, but they disapprove of the way you've handled it. Poll also found that based in part on what's transpired in the last week, a majority of Americans, and forgive me, I'm just the messenger, no longer consider you to be competent, focused, or effective in the job.
I haven't seen that poll.
It's out there from CBS this morning. What would you
The hell is wrong with you, Grandpa? Oh, it is hilarious. All he needs is a whoopee cushion and a hand buzzer. But he's not alone. Kamala Harris also getting a real kick out of the tragedy in Afghanistan.
What's your reaction? Hold on. Slow down, everybody. I want to talk about two things. First, Afghanistan. We couldn't have a higher priority right now, and in particular, our priority is making sure that we safely evacuate American citizens, Afghans who worked with us, Afghans at risk, including women and children.
I think she's high. Just add this crisis to the list of things the vice president has laughed off, most notably the humanitarian disaster on our southern border. But given the gravity of the situation in Afghanistan, does it prove the administration is wholly unserious about fixing things? Well, let's meet tonight's party panel and discuss. It's a man panel. We've got Versus Media podcast host and Spectator USA contributor Stephen L. Miller. Yes. We've got Fox and Friends Enterprise reporter and Fox Nation host Lawrence Jones, fantastic, and Democrat strategist and author of The End of Democracy. Doug Schoen is back. Welcome, everyone. Hi.
Thank you.
So this debacle in Afghanistan is only getting worse and worse. Stephen L. Miller, the president tried to find some levity in a very serious question. Does he not grasp how his presidency is unraveling?
No, I'm not sure he's grasping much right now. One of the other polls that was cited is 74% of the country polled by NBC News disapprove of the way this has gone down, and he's also facing an 8-point drop in the RCP Real Clear Politics average in a month. So you have a very scripted presidency that is suddenly the world's not going along with the script, and I guess if he thinks the script's a comedy, then the more power to him, but this is how presidencies are ended.
And it's one thing to, be human and show people that you've got a lighter side. But when you're being asked either a life or death question, Lawrence, or a question about how people view your competency, which is a very important thing to measure when you're the president of the United States, why did he and the vice president just dissolve into giggles?
They're nervous. They're under pressure. They're buckling. Look, this was Joe all along. And I think the difference that you're seeing, Kennedy, is that you have a press that is now curious about the issues. They're asking legitimate questions. Now, the time to do that was before, during the campaign trail. I know they didn't like the other guy, which is totally fine, but you still have a job to do. You know, this story wouldn't be a story if the press wasn't covering the story. And now you have people that have been on the ground that are part of the press, that have seen how devastating this story, and the press decided to get out of their Biden coma and ask legitimate questions. And so now you see an administration that doesn't really have a grasp on any of the issues. I mean, Afghanistan, of course, they destroyed this, but they're also failing on immigration. They're failing on crime as well, and a whole host of other issues. This is just the only issue where we've seen the press ask them questions. And as you can see, they just want to laugh it off. But the polling is starting to show a lot, and that they're tanking. And the one thing that Biden had going for him before is that people thought that he was relatable. They thought he was Uncle Joe, and that he was compassionate. It's not compassionate telling American citizens, just find your way to the air base,
Yeah.
right? Even though there are literally checkpoints all across that country where people can't even get through. Just find you. Meanwhile, the Brits and the French are going to go get their people. Our president is just leaving our people behind.
Fox News went and got a bunch of people.
Right.
The Fox News went and rescued 24 people this weekend. And I was saying
How
on the
dare
fight
you.
today that, yeah, I know, that they should put Fox News in charge of getting people out of Afghanistan because we seem to be the only ones who see how dire this situation is. And yes, people are stranded there. Doug, you have said this is a political disaster. It didn't have to be this bad. Because there was consensus, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, everyone wanted out of Afghanistan. The last four presidents have all wanted out of Afghanistan. There was a way of getting out. The how that could have been much, much better than this, because this is awful.
Yeah, it is awful. It is an American tragedy. It's not to be laughed at. It is to be literally mourned, because our strength, our purpose, our goals as a democracy are really up for grabs, in question. And the Democratic Party, it's no laughing matter for the Democratic Party. We are looking at a Republican takeover of the House and potentially the Senate as well in an election like 1994 and 2010, which were disasters for my party.
And people remember that. People remember the contract with America. And to Lawrence's point, you know, you see inflation. You can't buy a used car right now. The price of beef and gas, they're skyrocketing. Those are the things that hit people close to home. And then you
Kennedy,
have...
don't forget the southern border. 1 million a month, 17 to 20% COVID positive. That's the kind of issue that could tank the Democrats through the South, Southwest, and West.
Well, that's what happened when you elect President No Card, Kennedy. When you have all these people that are progressives and they want to be the ones that write on the no card when the president really doesn't have a grasp of the issues that are facing this country. This was very selfish of the Democratic Party. They could have had someone that was inspiring, someone that knew the issues. This could have been the new future of the Democratic Party. Instead, they put the old guy up there and they decided to write on the card. I think it's shameful, honestly.
Yeah, and it's, in a way, it's elder abuse. But also, I don't want to be inspired. I don't want to look up to someone. I really don't. I just want you to do your job and shut up and make things better. But they're compounding everything. They're making everything worse. And to Doug's point, I think there are fixes for the southern border. They're not going to be able to fix Afghanistan.
Nope.
They have completely screwed this gooch to the point where we should be calling the Humane Society. All right, Man Panel is sticking around.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.